Calculating how long your novel will take to write. With September C. Fox, that's me. So first I'd like to say that this isn't like a vlog that's going to give you a mathematical equation to literally figure out how many hours, days, months, years, whatever it will take you to write your novel. I do have a post like that on my blog that I will link to that you can kind of gauge yourself and fill in all those blanks that my friend Paul did, who's also a writer. But obviously when you're writing a novel, there are a lot of factors that depend on you personally as a writer. But what this vlog does give you is kind of a questionnaire that's going to help you determine how complex your novel is, which will then hopefully help you gauge what kind of effort and energy you're going to need to complete your story. Some authors write faster than others, and some stories, frankly, just take longer than others to write, and that's okay. And it doesn't just depend on the length of your manuscript. Some stories have simpler structures and others have more complex structures, like I mentioned earlier. So here are some questions you can ask yourself when you're plotting your novel to help you gauge how long it will take to write. If you probably want to get like a pen and a paper and answer these questions. I made it like a multiple choice thing. So if you want to do that, you can push pause and go grab something to write with. Or you can do it on your phone, always. Phone's always there. Okay, so keep track of your answers, and they run from simple to complex, with the letter A being simple and onward more complex. Remember, the more complex doesn't necessarily mean the story is better. Simple stories can be powerful too. Also, I made this list for myself. If anybody has any cool ideas of what I should add to it, just leave it in the comments and I can update the list as we go. Okay, question number 1. How large is your cast of characters? A. Small cast of characters. B. Medium cast of characters. C. Large cast of characters. How many settings are in your story? A. The story takes place in mostly one area. For example, the character never leaves the farm. B. Story takes place over a lot of different areas I'm familiar with. C. Story takes place in another time or place that I will need to research extensively. D. Story takes place in another time and place I will need to research extensively, or story takes place on a completely different world I need to create from scratch. How thematic is your story? A. My story doesn't have much of a theme, I'm just writing a story. B. My story has a bit of a theme that came alive all on its own. C. My story has a specific, thorough theme that I need to place carefully to best impact the readers. And side note, you may have multiple themes, which makes your story even more complex. I'm going to kind of let you gauge on the main theme or themes of your story. How complex is your plot? A. My plot is somewhat simplistic. Boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. B. My plot is more sophisticated. C. My plot is layered, complex, and intricate with plenty of twists and turns, and it's long, if that applies to you. How many different types of conflict does your story cover? There are 5 types, as a reminder: man versus man, man versus nature, man versus self, man versus God, and man versus society. So I want to take a quick note and say you may have a story that deals with one extensively and some others just a little bit. So for this question, think of, ones that you deal with quite a bit in the story that are kind of main conflicts. Okay, so A, I use one type of conflict in my story. B, I use 2 types. C, I use 3 types. D, I use 4 types. E, I use all 5 types. How many viewpoint characters does your story have? A. I'm following 1 viewpoint character. B. I'm following 2 viewpoint characters. C. I'm following several viewpoint characters. Does your story have character arcs? So, as a refresher, a character arc refers to your character growing and changing over the course of a story. A, none of my characters have arcs. B, my main character has an arc. C, several characters have arcs. Most stories will have at least one character arc. It is possible to write some that don't have any, but usually it's more fulfilling if you have at least one. How many types of emotions are you trying to evoke in the reader in your story? A, my story evokes a select few related emotions such as love, lust, and loss. That's kind of what it focuses on. B, my story evokes a lot of emotions and are differing emotions, love, lust, loss, and also humor, horror, and wonder. C, my story evokes a symphony of emotions. I want the reader to feel everything from despair and adventure to loneliness and victory, from humor and euphoria to frustration and anxiety. How many perceptions of your character does your reader see? So you can have different perceptions for each character. How she perceives herself, how others perceive her, how society perceives her, etc. Which ones are being explored. A, in my story, my reader only really sees one perception of my character. B, in my story, my reader sees a few different perceptions of my character. Or characters, if you have more than one main character you're focusing on. C, in my story, my reader sees a lot of different perceptions of my character. How many plot lines does your story follow? A, I have really one plot line, primary. B, I have two different plot lines, really, primary and secondary. I have multiple plot lines, primary, secondary, tertiary. Sorry, I can't say the third one. 3, 4 plot lines, so on. How complex is your writing style? A, I want to write in simple prose, the language of the common man, as they say. B, I want to write simply with some embellishments here and there. C, I want almost every sentence, almost every scene to be sophisticated and strong with every word carefully chosen. I may even have carefully controlled extended metaphors. Okay, so now that you've gone through all of the questions, you can look at your answers. So as I kind of mentioned before, the more A's you have, the simpler your story is and the less time it will take for you to write. The more C's, D's, E's you have, the more complex your story and the longer it will take to write. And not to mention it will require more skill. But remember, people need both simple and complex stories. They can both be powerful. If your story is simple, you'll get through it faster. That doesn't necessarily mean it will be easy. So don't forget what Da Vinci said, though. He said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Simple stories work. If they didn't, we wouldn't have romance or comedy movies still coming out all the time. American Born Chinese is a graphic novel by Jean Yang, and it's a simple story that I enjoyed. I studied it, read it in college in my young adult lit class, and a lot of other people enjoyed it too. It's one of the only graphic novels to receive over a half-dozen prestigious awards from the highbrow literary community, which is very rare. If your story is complex, you'll want to set aside more time for it and be patient. And when you see other authors whipping out novel after novel, just take a deep breath and relax. And remember, you're writing something that's complex. It will take more time to get it right. One of my personal favorite complex stories is Harry Potter. It took J.K. Rowling 7 years from the time she got the idea for the series until the time the first book was published. It took over a decade for her to complete all 7 volumes, obviously. And it was well worth her time. That's it for today, so hopefully that gives you guys some ideas on kind of where your story lies that you're working on. And of course, you can always get my latest writing tips at septembercfox.com. And happy writing!